Hi everyone. This video is about the progression of federalism and how it has changed from time to time. So our country has been around for over 200 years, and once the Constitution was created and the founders invented this political system of federalism, it began changing, and that's because times change and people change and advances are made. And so federalism has progressed, it has changed over the decades, and there are what we consider three eras of federalism that this nation has gone through, has experienced. And then a possible fourth. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So each era of federalism is marked by a different style, a different understanding of how to practice federalism. And so those eras are also truncated on either end, or they are marked on either end by a major event. And so something significant occurs that causes us to shift our to shift our understanding of federalism. So the three eras, the first one begins 1789, and that is when all 13 of the states had ratified the Constitution. So prior to that, the Articles of Confederation were the governing document of the land, although that was considered a pretty spectacular failure. The Constitution was in play officially by all of the states by 1789, even though it was written in 1787. And that era of federalism focused on survival of the Union. So if a country, any brand new country, is most likely to go under, that's the most common situation for a new nation, is that you are going to collapse either via, you're going to be taken over by some other country, okay, or you're going to collapse due to internal divisions and devolve into a civil war. And so the purpose of the first era of federalism was to maintain the Union, so survival of the Union. And even though there were some massive conflicts, we did not have to deal with those two dangers to our national sovereignty and our very existence until about 80 years had passed. So that was pretty great for us. So we had a few decades to go by before we dealt with any kind of external war. We had the War of 1812, but by then we'd had about 30 years go by. We were able to establish an economy, establish a military, a political system, you name it. By that point, we had those things. And then, of course, we did not have an internal conflict until the Civil War occurred, and that is what ends the first era of federalism. So in 1865, the Civil War ends, and that also shifted our style of governance. We thought perhaps we should have some different kind of setup as opposed to focusing on survival of the Union. Well, we'd completed that, okay? We'd been through a massive, bloody, protracted Civil War, and now there were other avenues to take. So the next era of federalism begins with the beginning of Reconstruction, 1865, and lasting through the 1930s. In the 1930s, the major issue of the time was the economic collapse of the Great Depression. And the end of the Great Depression, when we start to come out of it, that was the major shift towards the third era of federalism into what we call modern federalism. And modern federalism, technically it's still continuing, although it may have ended. It's hard to judge correctly and accurately when you're living through a situation. Well, it's easy to judge quickly, but in terms of correctly and accurately, hindsight is 20/20. And so in political science, we don't try to immediately state, that was the best thing ever, so-and-so was the best president ever, this is the best legislation ever. You wait, and you give it a moment, and you wait some more, and you give it a few decades. Because something might be a pattern, or it might just be something that happened. It might be a fluke. So one thing might happen, and then a second thing might happen, but that's not a pattern. That's just a line. You need a third thing, and a fourth thing, and a fifth thing. And so right now we're still technically in the era of modern federalism, but I would not be surprised if we entered into a new era of federalism on 2001. Of course, the significant event there being the terrorist attacks on 9/11. And so that's a possibility, okay? So in the next videos, you can check out the different eras of federalism and begin with this.